Be persistent, whether it's convenient or inconvenient, were the advising words of St. Paul to the young Timothy in our second reading tonight. Persistence, perseverance, or putting it in more modern jargon, hang in there. The obvious lesson in our readings tonight, first of all, is that all of us needs God's help to fight life's battles, whatever form or shape they take. But there's a little itty-bitty problem that most of us, if not almost all of us, experience. We often don't trust God enough to keep on praying for that help. And in the end of this gospel tonight, Jesus also tacks on a strange sentence as well. It seems almost like a disconnect from what he was teaching. After declaring that God will certainly answer humble and persistent prayers, Jesus says, "But when the Son of Man comes, will he find faith on the earth?" What is the meaning of that? Well, certainly Jesus is referring to his second coming at the end of history, at the end of time, when the final judgment will take place. Now, some people have interpreted this to mean that the church will simply slowly shrink as history unfolds, and only a handful of believers will keep the faith in the end. So let's clarify that. Be careful with that type of statement. First of all, the Catechism of the Catholic Church does tell us that as the end of history draws near, the battle between good and evil will intensify. That is church teaching. But the Gospels also tell us that Christ will not come again until the good news has been preached to the ends of the earth. There are still ends of the earth that have yet to hear of Christ. So we can sort of go like, for the moment, okay? Plus also remember the parable of the mustard seed. How that little itty-bitty seed, which represents the church that Jesus has planted in this world, becomes this huge tree. It also indicates that the church will continue to grow until the very end. So then, with that said, what does Jesus then mean by posing this rhetorical question? Will he find anyone with faith when he comes again? Well, Jesus really is simply bearing his heart to us. He has just promised in our gospel that God will never abandon us. But Jesus also knows that some of us could and will abandon God. And that's what saddens him. He hopes, by expressing his concern, to confirm our decision, to persevere in our trust, and to follow him through the thick and the thin. A sentence. Christ takes the risk of asking for our friendship. Christ takes the risk for asking us for our friendship. That's really a beautiful sentence if you think about it, because it reveals what is most unique about Christianity. You see, the Christian religion, the Christian faith, is the only one in which the all-powerful God desires our friendship. You see, in all the other religions that are not Christian, God desires certainly worship, loyalty, fidelity, among many other things, but never friendship. Only Christianity has that. And only in Christianity does God actually come down to our level. No other faith does that. God actually comes down to our level in order to raise us up to his level so that we can live a real, true, and everlasting friendship with him. And so that's why Jesus becomes sad when he thinks of those people who are going to give up on him, because that friendship is real. And when a friend leaves another person, that really hurts. We've all been there. We know what that's like. And friendship is always based on love. And also what we probably know by now in life is that loving certainly has its risks. And Jesus took this risk when he came to search each and every one of us out and to invite each of us personally to follow him into his kingdom. Now, Jesus knew that in order to offer himself in friendship, he had to become vulnerable. It had to be always a possibility that we could reject him. Take a moment and look at Jesus there hanging on that cross. Look at his side, pierced to the heart with a soldier's lance. This is what love risks. This is love's vulnerability. He has shown that he is willing to take the risk. And that in itself shows us how much he values our friendship. He did that for you and me. If you were the only person who had ever been born on this planet, he still would have died on the cross for you. That's how much he loves us. And he longs for us. He yearns for us to follow him, to learn from him, and for us to help him build up his kingdom in this world day after day, in good times and in bad, as he continually leads us to his Father's home. If we accept that invitation, we will never have anything to fear, despite what's going on in this crazy world. You see, because when it comes to friendship with Christ, the vulnerability really only goes in one direction. We might hurt him, preferring our own will over his by being unfaithful to God. But Jesus will never hurt us. He will never be unfaithful to us. And that's what is so amazing in this relationship, this friendship we have with Jesus. None of us here wants to abandon Christ. That's why we're here tonight. And yet we know it's possible in all of life's challenges and difficulties for those things to wear us down. Our resistance gets weak. But there is some kind of secret formula to help our friendship, our confidence, our trust in Jesus Christ. And here it is. It's no coincidence that Jesus' rhetorical question comes at the end of this parable about praying. And there's our secret weapon. prayer. Prayer is what keeps us connected. Prayer is what keeps us online, connected always to the flow of grace that is only by itself able to strengthen us in our weaknesses, enlighten us in our blindness, and defend us from temptation. All of us pray. That's why we're here today. But prayer is like everything else in life. If we're not getting better at it, then we're probably getting worse at it. And as we should also know, the devil doesn't usually separate us from Christ by instigating some really outlandish rebellion. Instead, his methods are much more subtle. He tries to draw us away from that friendship with Jesus little by little. And one of his first tactics is to make us cut corners in our prayer life. You know, it's really not hard to give God some time every day, but we have to believe it makes a big difference in our lives. Many of you, I think, know that already. And that's why you spend time in prayer every day. But let's say, for instance, you're one of many who still struggles. That prayer life each day isn't consistent. How can I approach that? How can I do that? Because it is so necessary. It's like breathing. Well, just give God a few minutes each day in prayer. Start off with 10 minutes in the morning, 5 minutes in the middle of the day, and then 10 more at night. You know, think about it. We give all our favorite music or favorite TV shows, as well as all our favorite web pages, an awful lot of time, a huge hunk of our time. But somehow when it comes to praying, the devil makes us think that that is just too demanding. So today, let's let the devil know. Let's tell the devil to go back where he came from. You see, Jesus is again reminding us today of his total commitment to us by giving himself again to us in this unbloody sacrifice of the Eucharist that we're all going to experience in a few moments. And when he does that again for us, let's again renew our commitment to him by promising him that we will never let a day go without spending at least a few minutes in heartfelt prayer. Remember, my friends, what that is. That's our secret weapon. If we're not praying, it's not going to come together, this life of ours, this confusing world that we face. It's only in prayer that it all starts to make sense. Because in the end, the only thing that really does make sense is him. And that's all that's needed, is him.